Good morning, everybody. I now call this meeting of Heritage Oakville to order. And we are live, both on screen and in person today, as usual. And if there's any member of the public watching us and they don't have a copy of the agenda, they can go to oakville.ca under Town Hall Agendas and Meetings, and they can get the agenda that we're working with today. Delegations who wish to join the meeting virtually have to do so by letting the clerk's department know by noon the previous day. Anyone who's in the audience today may in fact delegate if they choose to at the proper time with respect to any item we're dealing with. We have a registered delegation today for one of the items that we're dealing with. I will remind everybody that we are an advisory committee and that our recommendations from this meeting will go to the Planning and Development Council meeting, which will take place, can you remind me again, Madam Secretary? I seem to have lost that. When Planning and Development Committee next meeting is?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on November 13th.
November 13th. So that's when our recommendations will be dealt with by the Planning and Development Council. Okay, Madam Secretary, do we have any regrets?
Mr. Chairman, regrets are received from Jerry Tino, although she may be joining virtually, and Jason Judson has joined virtually.
Well, good morning, Jason. Okay, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest with respect to any matters before the committee today? Nope, seeing none. Next item is the confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting. These have been circulated. Are there any comments? Anyone give me a motion? Thank you. Councillor Duddock has moved that the minutes be adopted as circulated. Anybody opposed to that motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you. So our first discussion item is item 4.1, a development application at 13, sorry. I'm going to take matters out of order if the committee is agreeable. I want to deal with 4.2 before I deal with 4.1. So we'll deal with 4.2. Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason why we've asked to take this out of order is that we have received a request from the representatives of the property owner at 3175 Lakeshore Road West to defer this discussion item so that they can fully take part in the discussion. Staff and the committee certainly have permitted that in the past as we encourage the designation consideration process to be a full participation whenever possible. And so staff are making the request on behalf of the property owners to defer the item to our next meeting.
Thank you. That does seem to me to be a valid and reasonable thing to do. We want this to be a participatory process. But I do need a motion, Councillor Duddock, thank you, to defer this item until our next meeting. Any discussion on that? Anyone opposed to that motion? Thank you, the matter is deferred.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
and I had wanted to advise that there is one registered delegation, Patty Smartlaird, with the Bronte Historical Society.
Yep. And is she online? Oh, you're here, physically here. So did you hear what has just happened that we've deferred? Okay, good. Thank you. Right. If you wish to delegate, then do so for the next meeting in November? Yes. Okay, good. Super. Thank you. Thank you. I should have asked you that before we took the vote, but I didn't. Right. So now we'll get to 4.1. which is a development application for 1326 Bronte Road, and that is Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're just making our tech staff catch up here. I appreciate everybody's willingness to take the agenda out of order, but I'm pleased to return to item number 4.1 in the agenda package today, which is a discussion surrounding the property at 1326 Bronte Road, which is a property that is currently listed on the Oakville Heritage Register as a non-designated property of potential cultural heritage value or interest. However, the committee has seen this property before. We dealt with it actually, I believe, in the fall of 2020, where we looked at the property to consider whether or not it was a cultural heritage landscape, as it had been included on the inventory of potential cultural heritage landscapes that Council had passed in 2014. The decision from Council based on the recommendation of staff and the Heritage Committee in 2020 was that this property is not a cultural heritage landscape, that there had been significant changes to the farming property so that it no longer represented an intact historic farming landscape. However, it was noted that the house on the property had cultural heritage value and that the property would remain on the Heritage Register for the meantime, understanding that in the future there was likely to be a development application proposed for the property that we would deal with at that appropriate time. And so we are now at that time where we have planning applications in that impact this particular property. And so what we are looking at for this particular portion of the development application. So I will be speaking in regards to the implications for the historic residence, the one that's listed on the Heritage Register. Although there is information in your agenda package generally about the entire application, you've got the new plan of subdivision there. But what we're really looking at today is a proposed relocation of the historic residence, alterations to that residence, and then determining if those are appropriate so that we can enter into a heritage easement agreement for the property. And also at the same time, if you have any additional concerns about how the residence is situated in the new proposed development, we will be taking your comments down for the planning application that will feed into that separate process as it moves forward under the Planning Act. So, with all that in mind, what we're looking at today is a proposal that the historic structure be relocated to a lot in a new plan of subdivision, which would be at the southeast corner of this new development, adjacent to a woodlot with frontage retained on Bronte Road. So the vehicular access to the property, while it fronts onto Bronte Road, would be from the rear of the structure, internal to the new subdivision. The proposed new lot for the relocated house is the first lot that you would see when you're approaching the property from the south, heading north, I guess, on Bronte Road, giving the house a prominent space in the streetscape of the new development. We'll certainly discuss some of the analysis of the proposal, but simply given the size of the house, it has a significantly larger lot than its neighbors in the proposed new subdivision, as we can see here. And so one of the reasons why the proposed relocation is required is that essentially the house is located too close to what is now showing as Street A on your map, which actually lines up to create a fully signalized intersection across Bronte Road. On the other side of Bronte Road, it's hard to see in this particular image, but I think it's clear in the agenda package that it will be a new four-way stop there in the future. We would like the entrances to line up on both sides of Bronte Road to both the east and the west developments. And so we have actually worked with the developers to examine a number of potential placements for the relocated heritage house. You may remember that in the first application that we looked at in 2020, there was a different location proposed for the heritage house. It was certainly very conceptual at that time. The developers heard quite a bit of feedback from staff that the house was tucked too far back, that it wasn't retaining its connection to Bronte Road. It didn't it didn't have the prominence that we would like to see for a relocated historic attribute. And so discussions have been ongoing with the applicant, and this is in the red box there. You can see the new proposed location for the heritage structure. In the agenda package is a rendering of what the relocation would be hopefully looking like in the future once the development is completed, so that you can see that instead of being sandwiched on both sides by new development, we have the woodlot and path systems to the south. And then there will be a proposed new addition to the historic house that also kind of provides a bit of a buffer zone to the new development located to the north. And so what we're looking at for physical changes to the historic residence, we're looking at removal of the one-story 1950s rear addition. And we'll go through some photos of the residence here to make sure that it's clear what all of these portions are. Removal of the south elevation, it's a small entrance porch there. Removal of the non-historic shutters. And then we're looking at construction of a new 1.5-story addition with an integral garage on the north elevation. Construction of a new porch entrance on the west elevation and changing an existing window into a door in order to facilitate the new access to the property from the rear laneway, and then probably reconstruction of the front porch. As we know, it's very difficult to lift a house and keep the porch intact simply due to the lack of structural support. And so reconstruction of the front porch would be likely due to the relocation and then restoration of any damages to the exterior, as well as the historic windows, wood windows and doors. And so this is the house as it currently exists. The small entrance porch is the one that you can see in the upper corner there. We believe part of that porch roof to potentially be historic, although the entrance and the pillars are all modern materials. So it's likely there was a small overhang there originally, but it has substantially been changed over the years. And then what you can see in the very shaded portion of the lower photo is the one-story 1950s addition that would be removed from the building. It's covered in that horizontal siding, so it is not the brick structure of the building. And in fact, the new addition is actually being very carefully placed in order to retain some of the more unique features of the brick portion of the residence, especially the second story rear addition. And so what you can see here is the front elevation that remains largely intact on the original portion of the house, with the 1.5-story new addition, which is set back from the front plane of the residence, but is located to the side and not the rear. And that is for a very specific reason, which we'll go over in just a minute. This is the proposed rear, and so this is where you actually see the garage doors. And so this is the benefit of having an access point off of a rear laneway so that we're not staring at garage doors from the front elevation of the building. And there you can see then that the one-story horizontal siding 1950s addition has been removed, and there's a proposal to change what is an existing door there, window, into a door to create that rear entrance off of the new driveway. And so one of the reasons why the addition is placed the way that it is to ensure that we can retain the projecting bay window on the first story of that two-story rear addition. And so essentially that new addition, we'll see it in the next slide, will be kind of sandwiched between the chimney and that the three-part bay window there, so that we can retain that feature, which we feel is a very beautiful part of the existing historic residence. And so that's actually, I believe, the north elevation, and the lower photo is the south elevation, where again you can kind of clearly see the 1950s one-story addition that's being removed, and the entrance porch as well that's being removed too. And so here we are with with a clearer image from the north elevation of the new proposed addition, which, as I said, is proposed to be on the side of the building, set back from the front plane, but not set all the way to the rear, so that we can maintain that projecting bay on the second-story rear addition. And this is coming around to look at it from the other angle. You can see that what is currently actually a low hip roof is being proposed as a flat roof to create a walkout from that second story. I guess it would be an upper bedroom out to the roof line of that rear brick addition, which is a historic addition. So overall, staff are pleased with the design of the addition. The applicants have taken some feedback from staff on how to incorporate this and make a compatible yet distinguishable structure from the historic part of the residence. It's lower in height. It's clad in vertical wood siding that's set onto a brick-clad foundation to differentiate it from the heritage home. The integral garage, which actually will be a double bay, is accessed from the rear, as I've stated, so that we avoid having garage doors on the front elevation. It's pushed back from the east. The addition is pushed back from the front elevation of the house, again, to visualize the impact on the heritage house and the overall streetscape, and make sure that it's a secondary focus when you're looking at this particular building. And so it certainly is visible, but we feel that it has been designed to allow the historic portion of the house to be the focal point of the property. Of course, the existing structure will be restored where needed following the relocation. All of those conditions are very standardized in our heritage easement agreement to ensure that any damages that occur while in the process of moving the building are repaired. And as I said, the porch will be reconstructed to match the existing porch, so any materials that are taken down will be salvaged so that we can reuse them wherever possible in the reconstruction to make it as accurate as possible. And so what, of course, we will like to see in the heritage easement agreement is a moving relocation plan, and so that is to ensure that staff are confident that the building will be secured and relocated in the safest way possible to retain the most historic materials by qualified house movers. The conservation plan will be further developed based on the approved alterations that we're looking at today. The easement agreement always includes proof of insurance as well as a letter of credit to take financial securities in the case that the work gets partially completed and then not finished, so that the town can step in and make sure that the house is secured properly. We'll also look at extensive photo documentation of the property. The house itself certainly has been documented quite thoroughly in the 2020 Heritage Impact Assessment, but we always take photos of the house before it's relocated so that we have a very complete and clear idea of what the house was like exactly before it was moved, to ensure that it can be restored to at least the same condition, hopefully better, on the new foundation. As well, while plaques certainly are included in our heritage easement agreements on a regular basis, we would like to take the opportunity in this plaque to recognize not just the settler history of this particular house and building, but also the Indigenous history of the area as well. And all of these things have been discussed with the applicants who are supportive and would like to move forward as soon as possible. And so I'm here today with a rather lengthy heritage easement agreement recommendation. Essentially what it does is it gives us permission to enter into the easement agreement, and we register that on title for the entire proposed development lands. The easement agreement does not come off of title until such time as the work is completed to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and we also have a heritage designation bylaw in place for the relocated residents that would just be on the new lot, not on the entire property. And the last point is that if Heritage Oakville has any additional feedback that you'd like to provide regarding the proposed relocation in regards to the planning application, if you think there's any tweaks that we should make, other things that we should be considering, this planning application has not been approved by council yet. There is still time to make these adjustments in the process, and we value your feedback, and I'm here to record that too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Susan. Just to be clear for everybody, the first three elements are really to do with the plan of restoration of the house, all the things that are going to happen to it, and the conservation and relocation of it. And then the last thing you want us to do is to comment on the proposed official plan amendment as it relates to the historic residence. So is that as it relates to where it's planned to be moved to, and how the other lots and landscaping around it affect it?
Yes, Mr. Chair, exactly.
Yeah. So when people start to think about it, the first thing is, are we happy with all the changes that are being made to the house? And if we're not, suggest amendments to that. And then when we've done that, that would be what goes to council to enter into the easement agreement. But then we have comments with respect to the zoning and official plan amendment. Okay. So I hope everybody's understanding that, and we'll get Susan to expand on it when we get there. Okay, questions of Susan. Kathy.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased that the siting of the home is going to have a larger lot. My biggest concern when we move heritage homes, that we invariably have them on a postage size and it doesn't do the home justice. So I'm pleased with that. I'm also pleased that it's buffering the wooded section. So it really will only have development on one portion of the lot, basically. The one question I do have, it's still going to retain its orientation facing Brawny Road, which is great. Is the reason for accessing the property from the rear due to the fact we're trying to minimize the amount of driveway access on Brawny Road? Is that the reason why they're going that route?
Through you, Mr. Chair, transportation issues slightly outside my bailiwick, but yes, I believe that is the concern.
Okay.
Given the amount of new development that's kind of happening along Brawny Road, it's generally safer to have access points internal that then lead to a signalized intersection rather than trying to have someone back out of this property right onto Brawny Road. So,
Okay. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, Sue has had to leave. Okay, thank you. I see that Jason wishes to speak. Jason, are you tuned in and listening?
I am, thank you. Thanks everybody for that. That was very helpful. Just wanted to clarify something on the design package that I'm looking through about North. I'm a little confused, and maybe it's just the way I'm reading the plan, but on the overall conceptual development site plan, North is shown obviously heading up Bronte Road, with the garage extension portion shown to the north. The visualization, the 3D perspective shows that also, but then looking at plan A102 and A103 and A104, it seems to be flipped, and I'm just sure if I'm reading it wrong or whether or not. See, looking at the plans, the ground floor plan A102, as if the garage is, as you head north, is facing you. So I just wanted to clarify that, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think it's just a little bit tricky. So the front elevation, which is plant A201 on, sorry, I don't have an agenda page in front of me. Could we go back to the presentation, actually? That might be helpful here. I think the problem is that the front elevation and the rear elevation actually look quite similar. Okay. So this is the front elevation. As you can see, we've got the front porch that's being redone. We have the 1.5-story addition that on the front elevation only has windows. If we're looking at, this is then the rear addition, or sorry, the rear elevation, which puts the elevation, the addition still to the north of the property. But as you can see, they look fairly similar. But it is still, the addition is still located to the north of the original historic building. Does that help, Jason?
No, that's fine. So just go back to the conceptual site plan, if you
Yep.
would, just for a second, and it just shows that one there. Okay, no problem. I just think, so you can see, I can see the extension. The bay window is the key.
Yes.
So you can see the bay window. Okay. And then if you look at the plan I'm looking at, A102, which is in my design package, I know where the extension is happening. It just shows it flips. That's all. It just shows the bay window looking south when actually the bay window is looking north. I just think there's a correction needed on that. That was just now I've seen it. It's clear. Just it's not right on the plan. You don't have the plan. Do you have the plan? If you had the plan A102, you'd see why I'm just asking the question.
I don't have the ground floor plans in the presentation. Is that what you're looking at, the floor plans?
Yeah. It's the floor plans. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll
Just double check. Yeah.
yeah, I'll certainly double check those with the applicants. And, you know, something like this, certainly if there is an error there, would definitely be caught during the building permit process too. But we will ensure that everything matches up so that the addition is on the north side.
Okay, super. That's great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Jason, good. Anyone else have questions? Yes, Brenda.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I just have a couple of questions. Mine are more related to the lot and also to the size of the home. So question one, when we look at the rendering, if we could go to the rendering drawing? Okay, that one. So I notice on page 10 that, I believe it's 10, that there's that left side as I'm looking at this, where the person is walking their dog, that's an emergency access route. Where exactly does the emergency access go? Or is it where the person is walking off the property, or is it down the side of the property?
It would be located off the property.
Okay. Then to the right, I noticed that there's, so what I'm getting at is I'm not sure if this rendering is actually showing us the relative size of the lot, because I'm curious on that drawing that you've just moved to, the side lot where the garage is, the side yard, pardon me, setback, looks much less than shows in the rendering. So I'm wondering, are the side yard setbacks for both sides of the house the amounts they're supposed to be for, or are they less than normal?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm not 100% sure I understand the question, but I mean.
So if you look at the rendering on the screen right now, there's
Yes.
2 trees in the front yard shown in the rendering.
Mm-hmm.
But when you look at the diagram, the site plan, and you look at the diagram that was, if the person controlling could go back 1 page. So when you see this diagram, it looks like, so there's a large setback on the right side, and it says proposed emergency access right on the property line is what it's showing. And then the other side, there's a much smaller setback, side yard setback, where and I'm wondering, is that side yard setback on the north side the amount it's supposed to be? It looks less than.
So I would say it certainly is a much smaller setback on that side. In terms of, do you mean what's permitted under the so there is no existing zoning?
Yes.
That's the whole thing about this planning application, is that it would be setting up this to be approved.
Okay.
If the committee would like to see more space on that side, that is a valid comment for us to record today. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
So that's, yes, because my inquiry was trying to understand what it was first. And so if there is, yes, I would like to see an increased side yard setback, because it looks very tight on that side of the property.
Okay.
And what we've experienced previously is homes that are too tight have a devaluation of the property that makes it difficult for the house to sell and be appreciated in the long term. My next question is, how many square feet will the fully renovated home be?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would defer that question to the applicants who are here today, so
Okay.
they should be able to answer that.
So a linking question to that is, so there's one garage space for this home relative, and I'm wondering, are all of the townhomes in the space also one garage space, or are they two garage space? Again, looking at the value of the home relative to the other homes that will be in the subdivision. And then my last question is, with the retention of some of the interior elements that were identified in the heritage assessment, there were some, sorry, exterior elements, not the interior elements. There's like on page 66 of 308, there's the detailing of the shingle, there's the molded frieze under the eaves, and then there's the trefoil detail. I just want to confirm those will be retained, if possible.
Certainly, that is Heritage Planning staff's intention to ensure that they would be retained and then included in a new heritage designation bylaw for the property.
Okay, that's great. So then my primary question is the side yard setback and the number of garage spaces to ensure the home has an appropriate number of spaces relative to the size of the home itself. Thank you.
Good, Brenda, because that hits both bases.
Yeah.
One is the comment part, and that's an important comment. Gosh, when I was looking at the drawings, I thought it was a two-bay garage. Why did I think that?
Mr. Chair, I believe that it has the appearances of two bays, but I think it actually does fit a single car, but I am going to let it is a two-car garage, okay. The applicants are here today, and they will clarify that detail. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult to tell, whether or not it will actually fit two cars, but as again, I will let the applicants speak to that to confirm things for the record.
Yep, okay, good, thank you. Any other questions for Sue? Yes, Bob?
What's going to happen to the outbuildings? Are they all to be torn down and taken out?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, they've been determined to not be of heritage value, so what happens to them is outside of our realm at this point in time. I'm sure if anybody has any interest in salvage, we could discuss that with the property owners, but I don't think that there's much historic material there from a heritage perspective that we would feel would be of value to other property owners for reuse, but that is the intention.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Any other questions of Sue? No, thank you. Thank you, Sue. Okay, so somebody from the applicant wished to address the committee. So name, rank, and serial number to the secretary, and then off you go.
Argo Development. Sorry, I'm not Jessica Byers with Argo Development. Thank you for the opportunity to address the questions. So I believe there's a question about the amount of square footage. So the home is still in design phase, and until we actually get the building permits, there is some maneuvering that happens, but we are aiming about 3,000 square feet. So it is quite a bit of a bigger home. The confusion about the one-car or two-car garages, it's one-car door, but it is intended to be two cars. So whether it's 1.5 or 2, but there will definitely be space in the driveway as well. So there'll be at least 2-car parking minimum, which is the requirement in the area. So you're asking about the homes beside as well. So adjacent to it is what we call dual frontage townhouses. So the townhouses beside do front Bronte Road, but the driveway's in the rear, just like the Heritage House. And those homes will have one garage and one space in the driveway. So it'll be 2 parking for the townhouses with 1 in the garage and 1 in the driveway. So that will all be very similar. And then as it relates to the side yard setbacks, definitely we'll be working through that through the zoning bylaw. We purposely pushed the house as close as we could based on the required zoning bylaw setbacks, no less, because we felt like the garage side had less significance. So given all of the windows and the natural and existing light would be coming in off of that side and the wood light, we felt like having a bigger side yard and a more usable side yard on the south side was more valuable to the future homeowner than having a marginally larger side yard on the north side. So there is flexibility within the lot to move it around, but we feel feel like keeping it pushed as far north as possible allows for more usable space on the south side and, you know, the beautiful views and vistas to the woodlot to the south as well. But again, happy to work through that with staff. Is there anything I missed? Any other questions?
Is there anything else you wanted to share with us?
No, I think
You
Susan did a really great job. So if there's any other questions, happy to address them.
Good. Any questions of the applicant, Ms. Myers? Nope. And that answered your questions. Thank you.
Great.
Okay,
Thank
super.
you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else wishes to speak to this application? Nope. Good. Okay. Now confined to the board. Discussion. Okay. Does that mean everybody's happy? If so, would somebody like to give me a motion along the lines of the staff recommendation? Councillor Gittings? Councillor Gittings has given us the motion to approve the staff recommendation. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Is there anyone opposed to that motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, our next one is 4.3, which is our recurring item now, and it's Carolyn, the notice of intention to designate multiple properties. Off you go, Carolyn.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. This will be brief. So we do have 3 more designations for the Heritage Designation Project listed there, and I'll just go through them briefly. The first is the Wardell House at 401 Lakeshore Road East. You can see a historic photo of it there and a current photo of it on top. And it's been evaluated and considered worthy of designation under Regulation 906 as a representative example of craftsman bungalow style of design and for its associations with the theme of the development of Brantwood. And contextually, it's important in maintaining the historic residential character of Brantwood and is physically, functionally, visually, and historically linked to its surroundings, specifically Brantwood being the neighborhood that it contributes to. And the second one is also in Brantwood. This is the Miller House. You can see it located at the corner of McDonald and Allen Street. Again, a representative example of the bungalow-style design of the arts and crafts era that was prevalent in Brantwood and associated with the theme of the development of Brantwood. And again, contextually important as it maintains the historic residential character of Brantwood and contributes to this important subdivision. And then finally, we have the Nightingale House at 265 Watson Avenue, and the historic photograph of it there. And again, similar to the other two, it's another example of a representative or of a craftsman style design and construction and is associated with Brantwood. This one is also associated with the builder, Sidney Frederick Whiffen, who was one of the local builders in the Brantwood area who helped create that arts and crafts aesthetic in Brantwood. Also associated with Frank Law, the founder of the Oak Tire and Rubber Company, which was an important part of Oakville's industrial past. And if you read the research report, there's some interesting history on his run-in with the law, which was appropriate given his last name. It's always kind of fun for our researchers to find those little tidbits. And actually, they've been working with descendants of Frank Law, who some of which the family didn't realize this. So they're learning information about their family, which has been really interesting. And again, contextually important as it relates to Brantwood subdivision. So the staff recommendation is just that these notice of intention to designate be issued for these 3 properties. Happy to answer any questions, but this is basically the same as Mr. Chair noted as the other ones that you see every month.
Thank you, Carolyn. And I know a lot of work goes into preparing these, but they're fascinating reading. They really, really are. There's a rich history in the town. I suppose there's material for another book somewhere. Councillor Gittings.
Great presentation. Any feedback from the residents on these properties?
So for these, we have mostly support. There is some, we don't have, one of the owners we haven't actually heard from yet, so we continue to reach out to them. They will continue to get more notification in the mail, and so we always try to keep that process going. Typically, what we do is we send out multiple letters, so all the owners have had 2 letters and site visits, knocking on the door, And there'll be further notification when it gets to the council process. This being just the first process for the Heritage Oakville Committee to make the recommendation, nothing legal starts at this point. So, but we're always careful, obviously, at the next stage when it goes to council to ensure that the owners are well aware of the process.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that, the details that go into this. One of the homes has recently sold. That's why I was asking. I don't know whether the new owners have moved in or.
The McDonald one? Yeah, so we actually spoke with the homeowner on that one. She had just moved in. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we were working with them.
Well, I'd like to thank the research, whoever was involved in the research. It paints a picture, it tells a wonderful story, and it does not just the homes, but it brings the whole area to life. Having driven by most of these properties hundreds of times, I went by again after reading the report, and it just, you can almost see the people on the doorstep. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Any other questions of Bob?
Are we getting to a point where we may have a Brantwood Historic District?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Bob, we have considered it in the past. About almost 10 years ago, I think we looked at a potential heritage conservation district for Brantwood. It was decided at the time that there were not enough properties that were of heritage value to be worthy of a district. And now with changes to the Ontario Heritage Act, it's even more restrictive. You really have to have a huge percentage of properties being of heritage value. The reason we're going with the Part 4s on this is because of that. We thought, you know, we can't designate each property because they're not all worthy of designation. So it's important to really protect what we're calling the anchors, the arts and crafts, you know, keeping that arts and crafts aesthetic in Brantwood. And one of the reasons why there are so many different eras is because a lot of these arts and crafts homes, the ones we're working on designating, they were, the owners owned multiple lots at the time. They'd build a big house on 4 or 5 lots because they were cheap and they'd purchase them. And then over time, they got subdivided through the 40s and 50s and 60s and newer homes were built. So it is a really unique, eclectic area with lots of architectural eras and styles. So our focus is really on the original arts and crafts homes of the district, or of the area, I should say, not the district.
So I suppose the impact, though, of what we're doing here is that with an increased number of Part 4 designations, that would inform anything that was taking place on any lots adjacent to those Part 4 lots. So there would be an opportunity for heritage to have a perspective on that future development. Is that right?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to a certain point, only if there is some type of development application coming in. If someone is just getting a building permit and building within the zoning, within all of their rights, we would not have an opportunity to make comment on those sort of standard processes. But anytime there is any kind of planning application, a committee of adjustment application, staff would have an opportunity to look at the proposal and provide comments and possibly direct the design of that development.
Okay, a little bit. Okay. Any other questions of Carolyn? Nope. Councillor Gittings.
Be happy to provide the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gittings has moved that the staff recommendation be accepted. Any further discussion on that? Anyone opposed to that motion? The motion is carried. Thank you. Okay. 5.1, Heritage Conservation District Update. And we know there is something to report, Sue, so off you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm pleased to report that we had a very successful public meeting just last week on Tuesday evening. It was the first meeting that we held to discuss the contents of our new planning guidelines. And so really it was an information gathering session, very heavy on public discussion and feedback. We did a presentation to ensure that everybody kind of had the same information, and then broke out into what was called a World Cafe discussion format method. We had 5 different discussion topics ranging from, you know, people's opinions on the public spaces in the Heritage District to building materials, architectural styles, sometimes talking about what we want to see directly in the plan and guidelines in terms of illustrations, diagrams, clear language. And so the presentation slides and the agenda with the discussion topics are available on the project webpage. We are still seeking input from anybody who would like to comment on any of those discussion topics or anything really that they would like to see in the new planning guidelines. We hope to have a summary of the discussion up online soon, and that will be sent out to the project group, which I think pretty much everybody on this committee is part of, to get those regular updates for me. And we're looking forward to moving forward to create a first draft for public consideration and feedback later on this year. We are still trying to resolve the last little outstanding bits of the draft study. Unfortunately, we had to move our scheduled meeting due to illness, and so that will be happening in early November so that we can get that study finalized in front of council this year. But overall, things are going very well, and public participation and engagement at the meeting on Tuesday was fabulous. It was so great to see everybody out and engaged.
Good. Thank you, Sue. Any questions of Sue on the process? No, good. I think the next item, the designation project update, was designed to capture any ongoing feedback or pushback that we're getting from the project.
Sure. So we are just working on our 30th designation report right now, which is fantastic because our goal was to kind of get to around 80 properties. So the research has been working really hard on that. We've got a lot of positive designations coming forward. We do have 4 up-to-date objections to notices of intention to designate. None of these have gone forward to the OLT yet because it's just the first stage where they're objecting to the notice. The second stage where it actually gets referred to the OLT is if they object to the designation bylaw being passed. So the next council meeting, we just had one recent one, October 16th. There was an objection considered by council. Council moved forward with the designation bylaw. We have 3 more coming on November 13th, where the same question we put to council: do we withdraw the notice of intention to designate, or do we move forward with the designation bylaw? So we'll be taking that next month, and we'll see where it goes. But we're continuing to try to work with the owners too, as well. Obviously, wherever we can to, negotiate or find some kind of middle ground where we can protect the buildings, but meet their needs as well. But other than that, you'll see, I think, about 6 more designation reports coming to Heritage Oakville next month.
Good, good, thank you. Okay, so these are the information items. If somebody could give me a motion to receive them. Brenda, thank you very much. And no further discussion. Brenda has given us the motion, Madam Secretary. Anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Good. So the date and time of our next meeting is Tuesday, November the 28th, and it'll be back here in the council chamber. Motion to adjourn from somebody? I can see George was giving us that motion. George gave us the motion, Madam Secretary. So the meeting is adjourned. So thank you, as always, for the gift of your time today, and we'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you very much.